Hola queridos oyentes. Hoy escucharán una historia interesante. Pero primero no se olvide de suscribirse a nuestro canal. Disfruten viéndolo. William, te amo solo a ti, me dijo mi esposa, acusándome de celos excesivos antes de descubrir el destino de un pollo común en una granja avícola. ¿Qué puede pasar después de 20 años de matrimonio? Martina y yo llevamos más de 20 años casados. Nos conocimos cuando éramos muy jóvenes en una fiesta de un amigo. Fue una noche fabulosa. Estábamos un poco borrachos y alegres. Entre nosotros esa noche surgió un interés especial el uno por el otro. Luego comenzamos a salir y, después de un tiempo, nos casamos. Trabajaba en una granja avícola local. Empecé desde abajo. Todo el tiempo pensé que este era el primer y temporal trabajo. Era un trabajo muy duro que daba poco placer. Pero me esforzaba mucho por ganar buen dinero. La gerencia notó mis esfuerzos y ascendí en la escalera corporativa. Ahora estaba a cargo de varias tiendas. Administraba y supervisaba todo el trabajo. Me iba bastante bien. Porque sabía perfectamente cómo funcionaba todo aquí. Martina también consiguió un trabajo en esta empresa como contadora. Nuestra vida era muy ordinaria. Durante la semana trabajábamos y los fines de semana descansábamos. La mayoría de las veces nos reuníamos con amigos en nuestra casa de campo. Era un lugar hermoso y nos encantaba asar carne en una fogata y conversar entre nosotros. Mi director, Edward, era una persona muy astuta. Lo habían nombrado relativamente recientemente. Y no me gustó desde el principio. Por su culpa, la mitad del personal renunció, porque le gustaba multar y era demasiado exigente con el trabajo. No tenía muchas quejas sobre mí, pero no se apresuraba a reconocer mi trabajo. Redujo las tarifas de todos y disminuyó el pago de bonificaciones. Así que ahora había más trabajo pero menos dinero. En su carácter, noté astucia y secretismo, claramente estaba ocultando algo. Una vez más, nos reunimos con amigos durante el fin de semana en nuestra casa de campo. William, ¿cómo van las cosas en el trabajo?, me preguntó mi amigo Kyle. Para ser honesto, no muy bien, el nuevo director ya ha fastidiado a todos. Empeoró el funcionamiento de la empresa con sus innovaciones y ahora nos culpa de todo, porque la dirección no puede estar equivocada. Sí, es un verdadero cabrón. He oído hablar de él, dijo mi segundo amigo, Stephen. Chicos, ¿de qué están hablando de él? La persona es nueva, se está adaptando y tratando de hacer lo mejor que puede. Martina se puso de pie en defensa de Edward. Martina, ¿por qué demonios lo defiendes? Realmente es un bastardo. Con indignación, le respondía Martina. William, ¿qué te hizo personalmente? ¿Te bajaron el sueldo? Bueno, los tiempos son difíciles para la empresa. No es culpa suya. Yo hago la contabilidad regularmente y veo que los ingresos han disminuido significativamente, así que tengo que recortar en todo. Ya hemos discutido esto. No entiendo por qué se trae este tema de nuevo. Martina, veo que es una mala persona. Aquí claramente hay algo mal. Bueno, claro, tú sabes mejor. Tú eres el encargado de los pedidos y la política exterior de la empresa. Martina ripostó con ironía. Puede que yo no esté haciendo esto, pero solo veo una cosa, que cuando este idiota llegó, todo empezó a declinar. Si soy el único que lo nota, entonces está bien. Pero todos lo ven, y en lugar de apoyar a tu esposo, te pones del lado de este monstruo. Bueno, ¿por qué, si eres tan inteligente, aún no eres el director de esta empresa? Llevas mucho tiempo en tu puesto, tu crecimiento profesional se ha detenido. Así que siéntate y haz tu trabajo. Martina respondió con enojo. Ya basta, chicos. Basta. Vamos a calmarnos todos. Todos entendemos que hay problemas en tu trabajo. Dejemos que todo esto pase hoy y sigamos descansando. Kyle trató de calmar la situación. Buena idea. La apoyo totalmente. Vamos a beber. Apoyó Stephen y extendió una botella de cerveza. Chocamos nuestras botellas y continuamos descansando, tratando de no tocar este tema. Traté de actuar como si nada hubiera pasado. Pero en realidad, la postura de Martina me preocupaba mucho, y hoy simplemente se superó a sí misma con sus declaraciones. Para mí, era completamente incomprensible. Estaba oscureciendo afuera, y me alejé con una botella de cerveza, apoyándome contra la cerca para estar un rato a solas. Stephen se acercó a mí. «William, ¿puedo quedarme aquí contigo?» «Sí, claro. Escucha, aquí está el asunto. En general, Edward realmente es un idiota, estoy completamente de acuerdo contigo. Me han contado muchas cosas malas sobre él. Sí, Stephen, no entiendo por qué Martina lo defiende tanto. Eso es, William. No quería avivar la situación, pero dicen que Edward es un mujeriego con mayúsculas. No se pierde ninguna falda. Y Martina es una mujer destacada. Me temo que algo malo puede suceder». «¿En serio, Stephen?» «No, no creo que Martina sea capaz de eso. Ella mandaría a Edward al infierno. William, no tengo ninguna duda al respecto. Solo ten cuidado. Como tu amigo, decidí transmitirte esta información. Solo no le digas a Martina que te lo dije. No quiero ser extremo en tus tratos. Entendido, Stephen. Gracias por el consejo. Casi no dormí esa noche. El extraño comportamiento de Martina y las palabras de Stephen se quedaron en mi cabeza. Y luego está el viaje de negocios al que Edward me envió. Todo esto me volvía loco. Por la mañana, decidí hablar con Martina. «Cariño, lo siento, pero todavía no puedo entender por qué defiendes tanto a Edward. ¿Estás hablando de eso de nuevo? ¿Siempre tengo que estar de acuerdo contigo? Si tienes esa impresión de él, me das lástima. Tu postura me avergüenza mucho. Siento que no soy tu esposo, sino él». «Exactamente, eso es. ¿Tienes celos de mí?» Martina respondió con una sonrisa. «Quizás tengo celos. Pero no es solo eso. Eres mi celoso. William, eres un tonto al que todavía hay que buscar. ¿De verdad no creías que podría engañarte con Edward? Sí, te amo solo a ti y no te cambiaría por nada. Yo también te amo mucho. Solo no quiero que nadie se interponga entre nosotros. Sí, nadie se interpone entre nosotros ni podrá hacerlo. No te pongas paranoico». «De acuerdo». Después de esta conversación, me sentí mejor. Realmente pensé que era un tonto celoso que se había arruinado por chismes. Unos días después, empacé mis cosas y me fui de viaje de negocios. Pero allí volví a sentirme inseguro. Mi instinto interno me decía que aún había algo mal. Tenía que quedarme en el viaje de negocios durante 2 semanas. Pero con todas las tareas, terminé mucho más rápido. Durante ese tiempo, cada vez me invadían más las dudas sobre la fidelidad de mi esposa. Y decidí regresar a casa temprano, pero no le advertí a nadie. Decidí seguir a Martina. Tenía una curiosidad terrible por saber qué haría en mi ausencia. De esa manera, al menos sabría exactamente qué estaba pasando. Eso me ayudaría a calmarme. Regresé a mi ciudad tarde en la noche. Mi auto estaba estacionado cerca de mi casa. Entré al auto y comencé a observar. Martina, como siempre, salió de la casa por la mañana y se dirigió al trabajo en dirección a la producción. La seguí y me detuve no muy lejos de mi empresa. El día se hizo largo y doloroso. Durante este tiempo mi mente fue atormentada por pensamientos de que Martina me había mentido. Traté de apartar todos mis pensamientos, tranquilizándome de que no sabía nada con certeza, y que necesitaba estar seguro antes de hacer tales suposiciones. Ya estaba anocheciendo. Vi al personal irse a casa, pero Martina no estaba allí. Mi corazón latía cada vez más rápido. ¿Por qué se retrasa? Todos se fueron hace mucho tiempo. No debería haber nadie aquí además del guardia. Tal vez no me di cuenta de cómo se fue, pero vi que su auto todavía estaba en el estacionamiento. Entonces no pude soportarlo y decidí entrar. Conocía esta empresa como la palma de mi mano. Me resultó fácil entrar sin que nadie me notara. Aquí estaba muy silencioso. Era muy inusual. Durante un día de semana había mucho ruido aquí. Un gran número de equipos y personas trabajaban. La oficina de mi esposa estaba en el 2º piso. Había una luz encendida. Me acerqué sigilosamente a la puerta y escuché voces. «Bueno, Martina, deja de pretender ser la empleada del año». Sonó en tono de broma una voz masculina, por la que reconocí a Edward. Mi corazón latía aún más rápido, mi conciencia me empujaba a creer que había dudado sin razón, pero eso no me hacía sentir mejor. Decidí seguir observando. «Edward, realmente necesito hacer las cosas. ¿O quieres que los fundadores descubran que estás robando dinero?» «No robo, solo gano un poco más de salario. Vaya, un poco. Respondió Martina en tono de broma. Bueno, no confía en ti en vano. Y este dinero no es solo mío, también recibirás tu parte de este trato. Podemos acabar con cadena perpetua por esta travesura si alguien se entera. Nadie se enterará, Martina, eres inteligente. Es tu estúpido esposo. ¿Cómo puedes soportarlo? No sé. Pero con él, estoy en paz. Ya es hora de deshacerte de él. Pronto obtendremos una cantidad decente de dinero y saldremos de esta ciudad miserable. Dejemos que tu esposo cargue con la culpa. Este tonto recibirá su merecido de los fundadores. Y nadie le prestará atención, porque todo apuntará a que él fue quien llevó a cabo estas maquinaciones. Y ahora, cariño, es hora de que te distraigas un poco, mi amigo ya te extraña mucho. Dijo Edward mientras desabrochaba sus pantalones. Martina comenzó a desnudarse juguetonamente, y ese desgraciado empezó a abalanzarse sobre ella. Estaba furioso de rabia y entré a la oficina. «Malditas perras». Grité, aparté a ese bastardo de mi esposa y le di una bofetada en la cara con todas mis fuerzas. «William, ¿qué haces aquí? ¿No se supone que deberías estar en un viaje de negocios?» Martina gritó con gran sorpresa. «Sí, decidí asegurarme con mis propios ojos de que eres una criatura acabada». «William, cálmate, de lo contrario te ensuciaré». Edward trató de levantarse del suelo, amenazándome. «¿Todavía vas a amenazarme? Perra». Grité y clavé mi bota directamente en los dientes blanquecinos de este bastardo. La boca de Edward se llenó de sangre, se agarró la boca. «Me has tirado los dientes, desgraciado». Edward siseó desesperado. «¿Soy yo el desgraciado? Veamos ahora qué estás haciendo aquí». «Sí, vamos a ver». «Vaya, ustedes criaturas cantaron unánimemente que la producción no tenía dinero, mientras ustedes mismos vendían nuestro producto a precios inflados. Y escondían la diferencia en su bolsillo. Ahora está claro. Robasteis a todo el mundo, desgraciados infames. Vale, ahora me ocuparé de vosotros». «William, ¿qué estás pensando?» Martina preguntó con voz temblorosa. «Cállate, puta. Pronto lo verás por ti misma». Grité de vuelta. Até a estos desgraciados bien apretados y los arrastré hasta la línea de envío. Luego moví la grúa desde arriba con el control remoto y bajé el gancho en el cable. Puse a estos desgraciados en un gancho y los levanté. Colgaban boca abajo. «Así que, criaturas, ¿entendieron qué haré con ustedes?» Grité con una mirada confusa. «No, William, no, por favor no mates». Martín gritó histérico. «William, perdóname. Lo siento. Devolveré todo el dinero. Y si quieres, compartiremos contigo. Te harás muy rico». Edward intentó persuadirme. En este momento, estaban colgando justo en el tanque de agua. Las aves eran bajadas a este tanque boca abajo, y eran matadas por alta tensión, que estaba conectada a este tanque de agua. «No quiero tu dinero sucio. Te haré refrescarte ahora. Luego te despedazaré como pollos en esta empresa. Y sería mejor que murieras de inmediato, de lo contrario te dolerá más, desgraciados. Y ahora es hora de comenzar los procedimientos con agua». Dije y presioné el botón en el control remoto. Estos desgraciados comenzaron a hundirse lentamente. Se retorcían como serpientes arrojadas al aceite caliente. Estaban en un terror y desesperación terribles. Cada segundo que los acercaba a su inevitable destino los aterraba con inevitabilidad. Los pobres diablos se cagaron de miedo cuando tocaron el agua. El efecto de la autohipnosis me hizo sentir un choque de electricidad por un segundo. Pero no más. No los maté, corté la electricidad. Del tanque de antemano, así que simplemente se sumergieron en el agua. Luego los levanté por encima del agua y me acerqué a ellos. «Así que, desgraciados. Escúchame bien. Os dejaré vuestras miserables vidas. Pero mañana os aconsejo que os quedéis en la ciudad». Le di a los fundadores y a la policía todos esos documentos de la oficina. «Os aconsejo que vayáis voluntariamente a la cárcel. Y si intentáis escapar, entonces rezad para que la policía llegue a vosotros primero, de lo contrario os encontraré y acabaré lo que empecé». ¿Hablé claro? Pregunté a esos desgraciados temblorosos sosteniendo sus gargantas en mis manos. Aceptaron todo con horror, y los dejé ir. Di todos los documentos a los fundadores y a la policía. Esos desgraciados no se escaparon a ningún lado, los asusté bien. Fueron encerrados durante mucho tiempo. Las cosas subieron para mí, los fundadores me nombraron director de esta empresa, y puse todo en orden aquí. Una venganza exitosa, una nueva posición y un sólido aumento de salario ayudaron a eliminar los arrepentimientos de que durante tantos años viví con una mentirosa perra. Gracias por vernos. Para que nuestro canal siga creciendo y mejorando su contenido, por favor, apóyanos suscribiéndote, dándole a me gusta y comentando. Haremos todo lo posible por ti.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie. making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.